taking an idea and turning it into a product is so hard. It is so hard. I think for me, executing on an idea and actually being able to see it come to life on the screen and solve a problem, that's rewarding, for me. Obviously, it'll be really good to know if we can make money and have a low churn rate and build a business out of it. But, so far, just being able to accomplish what we have accomplished, I feel good about that so far. This is Brandon White. I'm the co-founder and president of FileFinder.
This is Code Story, the podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back.
I'm your host, Noah Lappart, and today how Brandon White created the platform for you to search in one place for all your cloud-based files.
All this and more on Code Story.
Brandon White started his career from his passion for fishing. In doing so, he wound up building the largest social networking and e-commerce site for sport fishermen. He got to travel around the world, fish all over, and do some amazing things with this company. But honestly, he got burned out on the sport and doesn't fish much anymore. He tells people today to be careful when people are following their passion, because romanticizing a career doesn't always work out for everyone. And just because people aren't overly passionate about something but are good at it, they should go after it anyway to help them buy their time for their passions. The genesis of his current venture started with his wife, who manages a family office. At one point, she was switching accountants, which required the transfer of a massive amount of documents, the bulk of which was an email. He thought that there had to be a better way to find these documents across accounts in the cloud. This is the creation story of FileFinder.
So FileFinder is effectively a search engine that helps you find files you have but can't find faster. And this has been a problem, a challenge in technology for decades. And the genesis of it, candidly, is that my wife manages a family office. And as it turns out, she's done it for almost 2 decades now. As it turns out, you rotate, I'm going to use that word lovingly, you rotate lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, money managers, every 3 to 7 years, maybe 5. I'm estimating here from living with Yvette and watching her. We've been together for 25 years, and she was switching accountants. And when you switch accountants, you basically have to transfer every document that's ever been involved in, in managing a family office. You're managing all sorts of things. You're managing the money. You're managing multiple companies. You're managing multiple real estate assets. In some cases, you're managing jets and hangars and all these things. Well, all of those things have paperwork behind them. And as a human, you start to organize those things, or you tell yourself you're going to organize these things, and you start out with a really robust amount of energy and say, I'm going to put everything in this folder, I'm going to put this in this folder, and this in this folder. And then you start to coordinate with other people in your office, and that doesn't seem to start to work because humans file things differently. Unless you've sat down and done it on a whiteboard and been really strict about it, which I don't care how good you are, rarely happens. And then emails start flying, and then you start a Slack channel, and then you have a text message, and the list goes on here. And she was struggling. And most of her stuff is in email. And just finding the files in the email was taking her, I'm not exaggerating, days. Because if you can't find something, you have to remember who sent it to you. And then you have to sort by that person. Then you have to sort by the attachment. And then you have the attachment in the email, and then you have to start clicking. And I'm sitting there watching her struggle, and I had started a company that is still in business but didn't work out initially in our initial target market called Zeus, which was an automated CRM that could organize things without you doing anything. And then we went into the government, which was a really interesting experience. But coming back to this idea, I had been thinking about search for a long time, and I finally said, I'm sitting there watching her struggle. I was like, this maybe, no, it was 5 years ago. I'm estimating, maybe it's 3. You lose track of time. But I was like, this is just absurd. We are, decades into modern technology, and we still can't find things we know we have faster. We're still struggling. And I broke it down, and she's like, if you could build something like, let's build something like that. And I started chasing that idea, and as it turns out, humans can't use Boolean search. And the reason humans can't use Boolean search is because you can't, as a human, most human, let's just put aside the 1, 2, or 3% of the people in this world that are off the chart, 10 standard deviations from the norm, and throw them out and just agree that for the most part, humans can't remember enough about something to put it in a Boolean search algorithm to find it. You can't. You keep searching. Even Google itself, it's good, and it's certainly better than it was back in the day. But I'm not sure that it's any better than searching in a SQL database. With some sort of, whatever you put on top of it, Solar or something else in there that helps you find these effectively keywords and or string of keywords. And most humans don't even know how to use the Boolean search as it relates to using quotes and or things like that. It's just, my mom doesn't. The average human doesn't know how to do that. It's not a dig on them. It's just like, how many things can you know? You buy a new car now, and it'll take you 5 years to figure that out. So I have a background in psychology. I have a master's in psych, and I've done some work with BJ Fogg from Stanford's Persuasive Computing Lab. And what I've come to realize is that as a tech nerd, you build things that you think can work and help humans, but humans actually may behave differently and think differently. So what I realized is that humans can't use Boolean search because they can't remember. But what can you remember? And what you do remember is people, places, time, topics, and groups. So why can't we just search by that? Because effectively, that's how search happens in e-commerce. From the day that I started e-commerce in 1996, we were putting a navigation panel on the left-hand side. We were categorizing things from the high level and then down. Clothes, men's, women's or women's, shirts, pants, underwear, outerwear, accessories. That's how it's done. But Boolean search doesn't work that way. So, but what if you could organize data that way? So that's what we set out to do at File Finder. And it's if you and I are having coffee in Palo Alto off of Sand Hill Road at the Starbucks there, but I can't remember your name and I can't remember your company, but I can remember the location, then you can find it. If I can't remember the location, but I can remember your company, but not your name, you can still find it. If I can only remember your company, I can still find it. And that's what we've done.
Tell me about the MVP. Tell me about that first product you built, how long it took you to build, and what sort of tools you used to bring it to life.
So the first product, I actually drew it on a piece of paper. Then I used Balsamic, I think it's called. You can draw it, take a picture of it, and then link it. I did that to basically get an idea, like, how would this flow? How would this work? Would people be interested in it? From there, I designed the front end and the flow. I designed the architecture, but I didn't code it myself. I have some friends in Argentina, and I paid them to build a very, very simple I say simple, it was built on a SQL database. We were using SQL search, believe it or not. It was more hacked on the front end for the design to accomplish the front end UI to accomplish what it needed to accomplish, and then just doing calls that we were hard coding into that code. And I ran it by, took that thing, and it was, the challenge with this, Noah, is that security is of the utmost importance, because the files in this case that you're pulling out of wherever you're pulling them out of, let's say email in this, can be confidential. And if that thing gets hacked, you're in big trouble and your company's probably over. So I did release it to a small group of friends on social media that I knew and I personally reached out to. I kept track of them. There was probably, looking at that Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet, it was probably 75 or 100 people, no more than that. And I basically just did the interviews and said, hey, try this. I told him it was not completely secure, but it sat on our servers. It wasn't quote unquote certified by Google because we were integrating with Google Gmail. And that's where we went. And then once I felt like there was a need, I don't think it takes that much validation to figure out that people still can't find their stuff. But I still wanted to validated it. And even though I had done a few companies, I wanted some structure. So I went through the free Y Combinator program with the idea that I was going to get into a flow, get into a basically homework assignment every week. And I was going to find a CTO co-founder, mainly because I can't code that well anymore. It's been a long time. I shouldn't be coding really. And I'm more the architect. It's not that I don't understand it. It's just that, it's not what I do every single day, and that's what we needed. So I was really grateful to find a co-founder here in the Bay Area who, he said, now you can imagine, as a tech person, I know this, and I'm sure you know this, and the listeners know that, you get hit up by a million quote unquote business people who have the great ideas, not a ton of background in tech, and they want you to build it. And so I understood from being in that seat, and Sergey said, he's like, send it to me. I was like, okay. So I sent it to him. I said, look, it's not secure, but download it and try to find some stuff. And he found things that he didn't even realize he still had. And he's like, yeah, let's do this. So we had not met to that point. We met for coffee down in San Francisco. And we then, one thing I've learned, and I know this isn't necessarily pertinent more on the business side, but you got to have a discussion about ownership from day one. One of the biggest mistakes I've made in my career along the way was not having that discussion and then having to have the discussion later. And it was pretty simple. Like, he and I were on the same page. We agreed with everything. Sergey's super smart and has been studying startups, has worked in some startups. So he got it. And once we got past that, he's like, we got to rewrite this entire thing. So we recruited a few friends, we paid some people, and we've got it to a point now where we need to get the authentication from Google. So Google now requires, which I think is smart, and it keeps away a lot of the noise. If you're going to touch Gmail or Drive or any of the personal assets, you have to have a third-party security audit. And I think it's SOC 2 or SOC 1, but it's it's not expensive in the realm of life and startups, but it can run you $15,000 to $25,000, and that's really where we are today. And I think we're struggling with how that's going to happen. Whether we're going to pay for it, do we want to raise money? There's always this inclination, like especially living in the Valley, everybody's like, raise money. And I've raised money, and I think raising money is good for companies when they're ready to raise money. But I've also learned that absolutely nothing happens as fast as you've planned. If you raise money too fast investors, and rightly so, are on a timeline, especially if you raise, angel investors are going to be a little bit more forgiving, but if you raise money from a venture fund, they need to be in and out in 7 years, their fund's 10 years, depending on where you are. I'm saying this lovingly as a former VC. You've got to understand their perspective. So when you take their money, and there are few firms here in the Valley and around the country that are understanding on a longer term basis, but for the most part, they're racing against their IRR. So I think right now we've talked about crowdfunding and doing things like that. We've talked about just putting up the money ourselves. And then I think the one thing that we all realize who are involved now is that once we do that security audit, it's time to go, because we have to do that audit every year. And I think we need to make sure that we have the time to jump into this thing, not, as much as possible to say, hey, we're going to get it out there. The good news is that along the way, Sergey has been, and a few other guys have been, and women have been working on totally redoing the code, getting it fortified. It'll pass the audit now. And I've been working on the marketing where, we have over 15,000 people on an email list that we can sell this thing to. And I think that's just as important as the code on the business side, is actually having built up an audience that you can get it out the door. Because if you don't get it out the door fast enough with enough traction, people are going to get discouraged, including yourself. And you don't want to quit because you're discouraged when the product could still be good and still be solving a big problem. You just haven't gotten there.
So after that point, you've got the MVP, you are moving forward, you're making decisions. How did you progress the product from there and mature it? And I think way I want to frame that question is, how did you build your roadmap and decide, okay, this is the next most important thing to build for File Finder?
That's a really great question. And I think a piece that people overlook and that Sergey is absolutely diligent on. And he has forced us to actually get into, I think we use Draw.io or one of those programs, but we actually graph it. And we've graphed to say, here's our core premise. Me being the expert of scope creep, I'm like, well, we want Gmail, we want Drive, we want 365, we want this, we want that. But he is awesome in saying, no, Brandon, we cannot do that. And, that's what you need in a partner. And you also need that openness that the other person doesn't get their feelings hurt or upset. And we literally have graphed and said, here's our core premise. Here's our first step that we want to take. We need to validate this. Then we will go here and validate that. And we've done that, Noah, not only with high level concepts in the product, but all the way down to the features. So, we will not go past, and we've really been diligent. And I got to say, having someone like that who can play that role and stay disciplined is what really drives you to success, in my opinion, over, 2 decades of doing this. That's what will lead you to success, because too many times you'll get into a room and you'll say, you'll fall in love with a feature and you haven't validated it. You don't even know if it's core. If you're building your stories and your sprints, you're sticking these things in there randomly, and they very well may be taking over, that second story in your backlog that should have been in the current sprint.
Well, so you talk about Sergey, right? And I want to dig into a little bit of how you found him, but even more holistically, how did you build your team? And what did you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you?
I have like 9 or 10 core things that I've always looked for over the years that I've built. And they range from being willing to speak up and challenge anyone, but if their opinion or idea is not accepted, to go along with the team without saying, I told you so. There's this tolerance for risk that, it's an early, I hate to use the word startup now. Everybody uses that. I think it's overused. You're starting a company. And it's not even a company. I think people get screwed up on that. You asked me when we started to do my title, like, I'm not going to use the word CEO. CEO would indicate that we have some executive team. Like, maybe when you get to 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 million, you get to say that. But, really, we're just at a project right now. Until this thing generates any sort of revenue, we're doing a fun project. If we can turn it into a business, then I think that would be awesome. But we were looking for, people who, this isn't the common thing, but I want to know who their partner is, their wife, their husband, lover, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. I want to know where they are, and I want to know what they think, because in order to do this sort of thing, you are using the most valuable currency of time. And do they have kids? It's not good or bad. It's, what is your relationship with your partner? Because, sometimes you may find yourself with teammates who absolutely love the idea and force a decision that they haven't cleared with their significant other. And then, you wind up on Zoom calls or whatever you're on with somebody screaming in the background. They're stressed, and, it affects the whole team. So it's not good or bad. It's what is their current status, and a commitment on the amount of time. I think I made that mistake way too many times in the past. It's not, hey, do you think, Noah, you'll have time to work on this? And you say, yeah, I'm going to have time to work on this, Brandon. And then we move on. Well, my expectation is you're going to work on it 20 hours a week, 50 hours a week, whatever it is. Your expectation is, I'm going to give it 5 hours. So, we're very specific. If you want to be a part of this team, we require, and you want to do it part-time, that's fine. Because most things start as side hustles, at least in my experience in life. Then, we want 20 hours a week. Does it mean we're going to keep track in T-sheets in Quicken for that? Doesn't mean that, but it does mean that you better be honest about it. And, it's not hard to see, especially when you're writing software, how many commits are you making a week? It's hard to hide, right? So Sergey and I were very upfront about those things. And, curiosity is another thing. Being curious, being open to ideas. And I have a list of other things, but these are sort of the core elements that allow someone to get on the team, especially in the early stages, and be successful. The second part of your question, how I found Sergey, is I actually posted in the there's whatever it's called. It's the free Y Combinator program. They run continuously now, and it's actually really good. You can get money somehow through that thing. It was more the structure that I liked, even from a guy who, teaches how to write a business plan and pitch deck in 13 slides. It's one thing to be able to teach it all. It's one thing to know it all. It's another thing to have someone on the other side of the table saying, hey, it's due on Thursday at 9:00. It's good to have that external person. So I had posted on that forum and saying, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm looking for a co-founder, which, a tech co-founder, which is sort of, you don't really expect a lot. In that experience, though, there's a lot of people from tech, business, marketing, and everywhere that are interacting in a genuine way. So it's not like you're hitting someone up out of the blue on LinkedIn or something like that. People have opted in already. And the fact that you're getting someone who's opted into that program and committed, because you can sort of see their attendance, because you have to do team meetings and things. And Sergey's one of the people that answered me, and then we moved it over into offline. I think we were doing it on email, and then we had a Zoom call. And at the time, he actually joined that to find another project. He had a like a side project that he used as an excuse, because you do have to have an idea to sign up. And he was there just because he wanted to find someone, someone else to be on a team with an idea that he liked. So, I don't know, man, the stars align, Noah. Sometimes you just be grateful that you got to put yourself in those situations. You're not a victim of the universe, but you put yourself in situations where good things can happen. And I think for both of us, it just lined up and we hit it off.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted VCSOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com.
Well, let's flip to scalability then. So when you built this first product, did you build it to scale efficiently from day one, or are you fighting this as you grow?
No, it broke. I mean, no, not even remotely close. No, got hacked. Luckily no data, because we hadn't put any data in it yet, but put it on Amazon Cloud, doing it on the cheap. I'm doing DevOps, and I'm good, but that would be a piece of advice. You got to have a good DevOps person, which we have now, but no, it didn't scale. It was like it wasn't even built on Docker or Kubernetes. It was just sitting on one server, the cheapest I could get. And it was the cheapest we could sign up for, because when we did do Y Combinator, we did get credits on Amazon and Google Cloud. In fact, I think I put it on Google Cloud to start. And it's not, I'm not saying, obviously listeners out there would be like, well, Brandon, Google Cloud scales. I know that. But you got to configure it to scale, and your database got to be configured right, yada, yada, yada. And none of it was. Some of that stuff, some of the code, Noah, was hard-coded, because I didn't care. Because if it didn't work or the idea sucked, I would just throw it away and move on. So absolutely not. Have we struggled on the rebuild? Absolutely. The good news is that Sergey and other guys on the team have built very, very, very large enterprise-level applications. Sergey worked at Ancestry.com doing DNA sequencing to figure out matches. If you've done that, you understand scaling. But I wouldn't sugarcoat it, man. We had to rebuild the code from literally the ground up. It was written in PHP to start. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, for an enterprise grade product that you're going to be dealing with millions of attachments and processing. One of the things for us, Noah, is processing. So I don't know. I looked in my email box this morning. I think I got 83,000 emails, mainly because my philosophy is I don't organize jack, because if you have a good search thing, you can find it. Plus, it just takes so much time. But imagine processing my inbox and pulling all of those files out of there and organizing them, and processing. If you're gonna read an image and process that image to either pull text or decide if that's a dog, a cat, a car, this is a huge amount of processing power. So how do you build those processes in a way that's efficient? And the other thing we're struggling with is, and we've started to actually get it, is how do you deliver a customer experience? Meaning, if I say, hey, Noah, put this stuff into File Finder and in 3 days we'll have your stuff, you'll be like, yeah, maybe, but then I got to re-engage you, right? And I got to get into your inbox to re-engage you or text you. And it's just so hard. So we've had to build this thing to scale to say, okay, we're going to give the customer, we're going to give the person an immediate piece of data back. Whether that's, hey, Noah, you actually have 84,000 emails. You've got 2,500 to Brandon, and of the 2,500, you have 52 attachments. And basically to get them engaged, like, oh, okay, like this thing's smart. I want to know what those are. So that's what we've had to really figure out, is how to batch process this and how to do it economically on a per user basis where we're not losing money on every single user.
Well, as you step out on the balcony and you look across what you've built with File Finder, what are you most proud of?
That we took an idea and actually created a product. I mean, I don't know why I keep doing this sometimes. Taking an idea and turning it into a product is so hard. It is so hard. And, I think for me, executing on an idea and actually being able to see it come to life on the screen and solve a problem, that's rewarding, for me. I'm looking at things with the glass half full and being positive. I mean, obviously, it'll be really good to know if we can make money and have a low churn rate and build a business out of it. But, so far, just being able to accomplish what we have accomplished on really no money to speak of, I feel good about that so far.
Well, let's flip the script a little bit then. So tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
I think the mistake we've made is not communicating enough. I know that might not be the answer you're looking for. I mean, there's like 5 million coding mistakes. Let's just agree with that. But I think when we've hit this last roadblock, we probably haven't talked enough among the group to keep the momentum going. And I think that's where we've lost a little steam. And actually, this recording is timely because I was just thinking the other day, I was like, man, we got to get together in person again. And I think COVID, I don't want to blame COVID because we were remote anyway. We all live generally in the Bay Area and can get to one another. But I think COVID definitely, we used to meet in person for dinner and things like that once a week or every 2 weeks. And then the battle rhythm sort of got in 3 or 4 weeks. But, that hasn't occurred. And I think that's hurt us in this, in this goal.
Well, what does the future look like for File Finder, for the product, and for your team?
Well, I think we're going to get the SOC audit with Google, and then we're going to release this thing to a whole bunch of people on an email list we have. And we're going to see if they buy it. And I mean, ultimately, we're going to see if it solves the problem we think we're solving. And if we solve that problem and it's a big enough problem and people are willing to pay us, a monthly fee or yearly, ultimately is what we're going to charge, then that's what's next. So it's, in many ways, it's a little bit scary after you spend all this time to say, okay, boys and girls, time to put on your big boy pants and see if it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, can we change something, or how can it work?
Let's switch to you, Brandon. Who influences the way that you work? A CEO, a CTO, an architect, really any person. Name a person you look up to and why.
I tend to look at Bruce Lee, and that might not be the obvious answer, but he followed a lot of philosophies that drive actions that have, I don't want to say influenced, but certainly guided my life. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. I mean, I keep going down the list of things that he's, his philosophies. Be great at, be the absolute best at one kick, not okay at 100. I'm paraphrasing some things here, but, be water, which is overused, but, that's what we have to do when we're building products. Like, if you're not going to adapt and you're just going to, have a hard water line and stay it there, then I wish you the best, but the likelihood that you're going to have to change, and in a journey like this is, you're going to have to change. And if you don't, then you're really lucky. But I think he, just from a high level, I've written about him. I've done some articles in Entrepreneur Magazine and stuff like that, and I have a little Bruce Lee figure in my kitchen with him in his yellow jumpsuit, and it just really reminds me to kick butt every day and follow those philosophies. So that's what I would say.
Well, we talked about a mistake, but a little bit different spin. If you could go back to the beginning, what would you do differently? Or where would you consider taking a different approach?
My inclination is to say, no, I wish I would have found a co-founder faster. But I don't know that that's the answer. I don't know that we would have gotten to the same spot. Like, I think that's because I felt like if I had help, I would have gotten there, the product or the idea would have gotten there faster. But I don't know that that's true. What I found, so I'm answering by not answering maybe your question, but sometimes most of what I've found is that sometimes you just have to put, you got to make the dough, you got to stir it up, and you think you got a great cookie and it's going to be absolutely incredible, but you got to put it in the oven and let it bake for a while. And then, as you bake the cookie, the ingredients come together, they merge, they change, and, sometimes you burn the cookies, and sometimes the cookie is spectacular. So I think while business owners, entrepreneurs, coders, anybody on that journey to build a business wants it to happen faster, I actually think the time it takes to do it is a good thing. Because there's like a few stories we can mention, and that's great, that have happened overnight. But, have they even happened overnight? They made money overnight. Some, few. But, most things just take a really long time. So I think I wish I would have, and maybe I still wish that, but I don't want to use it as an excuse that we would have been further faster. I just think it would have been a richer experience to have a co-founder early on.
Well, last question, Brandon. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. They can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. That's a loaded thing, because in order to do that, you need to check your own ego. And that takes a lot of personal reflection and work to get there. But if you don't do that, and you think you're the smartest person in the room, and you want to be the smartest person in the room, you're going to have a lot of challenges because you're not going to see your blind spots, and that's what's going to get you. The other thing that I would add is, and I think this takes a lot. It's taken me. I'm certainly been a pretty confident type A, stubborn person maybe in some ways in my life, but the thing that everybody doesn't have to like you, and you don't have to seek other people's approval. There's 7.9, I think, billion people on this planet. The idea, just think about it from a coding perspective, the idea that every single 7.9 minus 1 billion people on this earth are going to like you is ridiculous. And the fact that you're going to like them is even more ridiculous. Except that you're not going to like everybody. They're not going to like you. You don't have to get them to like you. What you do have to do is put your best self forward and do that. And just because someone doesn't like you or you don't like them, it doesn't even preclude you from working together. You can work together. What you need to do is respect one another, and that's the difference. So I'm just adding this little bonus one in because it builds on, don't try to be the smartest person in the room. A lot of people want to be the smartest person in the room because they're insecure. And then their insecurities, which everybody has at some level, drives them to want to be liked. And then they want to be liked, and then they chase this thing that ultimately is just an unrealistic expectation. So that would be my advice. I don't know if they would have to have a drink after that or think I'm totally weird, but that'd be it.
That's great advice. Well, Brandon, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of File Finder.
Thanks, Noah. I'm really grateful.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Laphart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.